Music follows a strict set of rules, is what you might believe if you've only learned the basics. Truth is, there are no rules. Music theory only describes what the music is doing, but when you're making music, you're free to do whatever you want, and people sometimes come up with some strange ideas. You might have come up with some weird stuff yourself when improvising or composing, and this video might just teach you why it's not all that odd at all. Let's get to it. Modal interchange is also called modal mixture, and it uses the church modes to give us much more options for melody and harmony. Typically, a song is either in major or in minor, by which we mean that the chord that feels like the tonic is either a major chord or a minor chord, and this has implications for how the rest of the chords will sound. In the key of A minor, I can play an F major chord. It's the flat 6 and it occurs naturally within the scale. However, in the key of A major, I can also play an F major chord and it will sound very different. That's because the A major chord implies the A major scale and all the chords that fit with that. And F major is borrowed from the relative minor. Aha, relative minor. Let's check that concept out first. A minor's major parallel is C major. We've discussed this before, and in case you missed the lesson you can click the pop-up, but otherwise, if you're still here, C major is the major parallel to A minor because they share the same note content. However, the relative major to A minor shares the same tonic, so the relative major to A minor is A major, and the relative minor to A major is A minor. They share the same tonic, that's how they're connected. And when you're in a major key, borrowing from the relative minor, those chords tend to sound amazing, and they get used all the time. You might remember Love is in the Air from a few lessons ago. Again, there will be a pop-up somewhere, but it's in the key of C major, moving to F major, to C major, and to F major. Then to G, F, G, A minor, and there at the bottom left, you see A flat major. This chord was borrowed from the relative minor, so we're in the key of C major, and we're borrowing this chord from C minor. And it's just a borrowed chord, meaning we're just playing this one chord and then immediately returning back to the key of C major. Just borrowed it for a split second, but it works wonders. And these borrowed chords from the relative minor tend to create a tension that wants to resolve back down to the tonic, which is exactly what it does in this song. This idea expands our palette in the major key. Now we can't only use the chords in the top row, but also the ones in the bottom row. It also goes for minor chords the other way around. We cannot just use the bottom row, but the top row. However, being in the minor key and borrowing chords from the relative major tends to sound a bit more jarring and it's harder to pull off melodically, so I'm just going to stick to the major keys and borrowing from minor for now, because we're not even done. We're now thinking about playing and writing in Ionian, which is just major, and borrowing from Aeolian, which is natural minor. However, we can borrow from all the church modes.
All the church modes. All the church.
Borrowing from other church modes is a bit more rare because again it's harder to pull off, but it does happen. People do sometimes borrow from Lydian or Dorian, for example. See, most 7th chords that we can pick up from this can also be justified in other ways. In the key of C major, we might play D minor 7th, and you could say, well, this chord has been borrowed from C Mixolydian, but that doesn't make sense just yet. See, when our ears hear D minor 7 in the key of C major, our ears are just gonna fill in that that's the plain old minor 2 chord. You're gonna have to convince the listener that indeed you're now borrowing from Mixolydian. So how would you do that? Well, the difference between C major and C Mixolydian is that we now have a B flat instead of a B. So you're gonna have to play that B flat somewhere in the arrangement or in the melody. And it has to sound natural and melodic and, you know, like actual proper music. Most modal interchange mixes a good old natural minor into a major key, and that's the most important one to get a hold of. And the best way to do that is to put it to practice. Camera angles and recording piano, it's difficult. Anyway, this is what we've got. I'm going to start you off with a subtle example. This is You Are by Lionel Richie. Now every song I'm going to mention is linked in the description below. You Are by Lionel Richie starts out in a major key. Of course it starts out in a major key. That's what we're investigating. And it stays in a major key. What you've just heard are the chords of the verse. Now when we move to the pre-chorus, we're moving to the 4 chord, to 5, 1. 1 over its 3rd to lead us up to the 4th, and then the 5 and 1. Girl, I love you. There's no one above you. So that's 4 leading to 2, 5, and then we start in the chorus where we get our subtle little modal interchange moment. You are the sun, you are the rain. Did you pick up on it? That makes my life this foolish game. You need to know I love you so. Okay, so what's happening here? You are the sun, you are the rain. There, this moment, this is where we're playing a 5 chord, but it's a minor 7th instead of a dominant. And a 5 chord as a minor 7th, well, we're just taking that from the relative minor. Of course we are. And this chord surprises us in kind of a sweet and colorful way to make the chorus just pop a little bit more and give a little bit more emotional gravity to what he's saying. Let's move on to the next song. Now, this is going to be a song that uses modal mixture very covertly. It's obvious. It's Kiss from a Rose by Seal, and it continuously changes between major and minor tonalities. Eventually, the song is in a major key, borrowing from the relative minor a bunch. We're gonna check out just how that works right now. So far, we've mostly used G minor and G Mixolydian, actually, because we move from the octave to the minor 7th. However, we're going to be resolving back to G major all the time throughout this entire song. And it's going to work like this. The melody immediately takes a note that wants to resolve to the major 3rd and then goes to the major 3rd, anchoring that sound in our ears. There used to be a graying tower alone on the sea. So it's moving from G major to E flat major 7th to F major. Now F major could have been taken from G Mixolydian as well, but E flat major 7th, that's just borrowed from the relative minor. There's no other way. Now these chords make up a very large part of what happens in this song. It's not everything though, but it's a very large part. And what we're doing is we're laying down the tonic, G major, then moving to the relative minor immediately, which already creates this tendency for us to want to resolve back down to the tonic. But instead of doing so, first we're moving up, ascending, going from 6 to 7 to 1 or to 8. And this is a very typical chord progression, especially in game music. It gets used in film music as well. Okay, so why is he doing this? Well, it has to do with the emotionality of the song and the message of the lyrics. So pay attention to the lyrics. There used to be a graying tower alone on the sea. Okay, a graying tower, becoming more gray, alone on the sea. Okay. A light on the dark side of me. Light and dark, creating this interplay between light and dark, much like major and minor. And love remains. Here we get some new chords. A drug that's the high and not the pale. What we're doing there is we start on F major this time, not on E flat but on F, a very different place to start because all the notes are different. So immediately there's this contrast because we've started in a different place and we're moving in a different way. We went from E to F to G, ascending in seconds, and now we're going from F to C to G. In plagal cadences, we're moving in fourths, so the harmonic momentum is very different here. Also, the motion, the ascending motion, is being contrasted by this descending bass motion. So a lot of contrast. But did you know that when it snows, not only using the melody to outline the major 3rd and moving to the minor 3rd, but also moving from a major tonality to a minor tonality as soon as we hit the word snow. But did you know that when it snows, My eyes become large and the light that you shine, can be seen. Moving back to major. So there's this interplay between major and minor. And there's this sentence that's revealing that it's not all bad. You know, he was talking about a graying tower, the light and the dark side of me. So I have a dark side and you're revealing the light. And there comes the contrast, telling us, or when he's telling us, rather, that love is the high and not the pill. Love is the actual feeling. It's not the thing you need in order to escape from the darkness. It is the light. Love is the light. So that's kind of what I believe he's getting at here. And he's creating a bunch of contrast to make sure we're paying attention when that's being said, right? And then back to the emotionality of the song. Did you know that when it snows, my eyes become large and the light that you shine can be seen? Okay. Last little bit that I'm going to show you is in the chorus. And baby, I compare you to a kiss from a rose on the grave. The more I get of you, the stranger it feels, yeah. Okay, that was a weird little moment. Now what's strange there, this interplay between major and minor all has to do with B and B flat, because from the key of G, B is the major third, B flat is the minor third. Okay, so how is he moving to the minor third this time? See, if we're in a major, in a G minor, if we're in G minor or an E flat major, in both cases, the B flat is just a chord tone. It might be weird that we went to a minor tonality, but the notes that reveal that we are in a minor tonality all just fit well within the chord that's being played. In G minor or E flat major, it's just a basic chord. However, here we're doing something different. This is an F7 sus4, and the B flat is the sus4. This time, the B flat, as soon as it gets revealed that there's a B flat instead of a B, it has tension. It wants to resolve. It's not where it's supposed to be. And on which word does this happen? The more I get of you, the stranger it feels, yeah. On stranger, on the strangeness of what this love is feeling like, to him at least. So he's trying to communicate how odd this is for him. And he uses this chord to help us feel the weirdness of it. Okay. My neck was done with that camera angle. Anyway, that was Kiss from a Rose by Seal, and the harmony has this great interplay with the lyrics using modal mixture to create that interplay. Okay, now let me get my guitar real quick. Okay, got my guitar. This is 7 Days in Sunny June by Jamiroquai, and it uses modal mixture to create, well, very interesting harmony, and in a way you wouldn't expect. We're in a minor key and borrowing from the relative major. So how does that work, and what does that sound like? And the verse goes from A minor 7, we're in the key of A minor. So the F sharp minor that's coming straight after has to be borrowed from A major. But it's just one chord that's being borrowed. We're immediately returning to F major 7th and then to G7. Actually G13, but we'll talk about that in a couple lessons. This is what it sounds like. So I hope you can agree that that's kind of colorful already, but we're going further than this. In the chorus we're starting on a B minor 7th, moving to F sharp minor 7th, which really feels like either 4-1 in the key of F sharp minor, or 1-5 in the key of B minor. But in the context of this song, that's not really what's happening for as far as I can tell, for as far as I'm concerned. We're going from B minor to F sharp minor, B minor to F sharp minor, then A minor, B minor, C sharp minor, D7 sus2, and then it repeats. Okay, so what's happening here? Well, we could take B minor as the 2 chord in A major, just like we could take F sharp minor as the 6 chord in A major. And then there's just E minor 7, our tonic, moving up to B minor 7. Again, the 2 chord in A major, although it could have been borrowed from a Dorian or a melodic minor, but it makes more sense now to keep talking about the interplay between major and minor, because that's what it feels like. At least to me, that's what it is. So A minor, B minor, C sharp minor. Well, the C sharp instantly reveals that we're in the key of A major, so this has to be the 3 chord from A major. And then D7 is sus2, so there's no third, it's a sus chord, and this means it's native to the key of A minor. So we're moving from native to A minor, close to A minor, from A major, back to A minor, right? Anyway, this chord progression strikes me as being very strange and kind of beautiful, and you could make something like this as well. Which brings me to the next part, the assignments. Time for you to get to work. Okay, first assignment, of course, is going to be about notation and calculation. These are 2 different chord progressions, and I want you to analyze them and tell me where the chords are derived from. Okay? And give the Roman numerals for the chords. This is all. Write down the chords for yourself, because we're moving on to the next assignment. Okay, for the next assignment, of course, we're going to figure out stuff by ear. This is going to be Mr. Curiosity by Jason Mraz, and it's just the verse, and I want you to figure out the chords by yourself. Here we go. And that's it. Figure out the chords for yourself, and the answers will follow after I've given you all the assignments. For the next assignment, try and sing this. Da 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 da. What I'm doing there is singing whole tones up to the octave and then whole tones down. This will help you get used to the sound of whole tones, and once you get used to the sound of whole tones, wherever you are in a melody, in a scale, in a key, if you ever need to go up or down a whole tone, you will now have this sound in your mind to help you latch on to the note that you're trying to hit. And for that same reason, we want another exercise to help us with semitones. However, you need to know whole tones first, because this exercise lets us sing a whole tone and then a semitone, a whole tone and then a semitone, a whole tone and then a semitone, moving up and up and up. And it's going to sound like this. Da, going up a whole tone, going up a semitone, going up a whole tone, going up a semitone, and da 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 da. That's how you practice this. You go up a whole tone and then a semitone, because a bunch of consecutive semitones is going to get really weird at some point, because your pitch is not perfect, so you're gonna diverge from the original tonic at some point, and going whole tone semitone can help stay in key at least a little bit. Okay, so that's number singing. Those are 2 exercises to go through in order to help you sing whole tones and semitones and get better at that and lock those sounds into your mind. However, we also need to execute these things. We need to play on our instrument. And if you're a vocalist, that means extra training in things like number singing. However, for piano players, guitar players, bass players and all others, we need to play these things on your instrument. Especially play some chords for yourself that use modal mixture. Create a backing track for yourself. Ideally one that you can loop in a DAW. DAWs can be free. I would suggest using those. And then improvise over these chords you've played yourself. Now you can use modes here in all sorts of ways. Once there's a C major 7th chord, you could play Ionian, but you could play Lydian. Even if it's the 1 chord, you could just play Lydian and see what that sounds like and see if that fits in with what you're going for. You have this freedom. Try and use it. Be explorative, be playful, and just try and see how much you can pull off using these sounds and mixing them. Moving on to the very last assignment. Composition. Of course it's composition. It's been that way for this entire course and it's not going to change now. Composition is incredibly important. You need to compose harmony and melody together using modal mixture. And I'd love it if you would share your compositions, but we will get to that afterwards. First, let's get to all the answers to all the assignments. So for this assignment, I've already notated the chords that are native to the key that we're playing in. There are a few chords that I've circled that are not native that I will get into right now. These chords are borrowed from the relative minor. Together they make a backdoor resolution, but we will get back to that in the lesson about 2-5-1s. This chord is definitely borrowed from the relative major of C sharp minor, but this chord is not necessarily taken from the relative major. We actually came across this chord for the first time talking about harmonic minor, and generally you would expect harmonic minor to be played over this chord. It doesn't have to be that way though. You could play C sharp major over a G sharp 7th chord and it would create a very different sound, and you could choose to play that. However, typically people would use harmonic minor here. So read and weep, because we're moving on to the next assignment. Mr. Curiosity by Jason Mraz. You were figuring out the chords and I'm gonna reveal them to you. First, I'll sing all the roots. Da, da. Then you need to know number singing and use that to figure out the numbers of those roots. It's 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 1, 2, 5, and then it goes back to 1. Okay, the weird thing here is that not all the chords fit neatly into the key, not because of their roots, but because of the chord types. There are many minor 7ths in this chord, in this chord progression, excuse me. This is major. And then minor 7th, like you would expect, except the 5th chord is different. The root, da, 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 da. This is a da, da. It's a minor 7th. The 2 chord was already a minor 7th, but now the 4 chord is also turned into a minor 7th. And then we got 1, 2, 5, back to 1. So we got a bunch of minor 7th chords consecutively, because 2 of those chords were borrowed from the relative minor, and this creates a particular mood, and that just fits with Mr. Curiosity. And we end up with this chord progression, and you can see all the consecutive minor 7ths in the middle of this chord progression, and it's what gives the song its color and its flavor. Obviously, I can't check your number singing or what you're playing on your instrument, but your compositions could be recorded and could be shared in the comment section below. And I would love it if you would do so, because I would love giving feedback on it and helping you with your journey here. However, that's all I can say. I would love to hear from you guys, but for now, let's move on to the recap. First of all, modal interchange, otherwise known as modal mixture, uses borrowed chords from other church modes. The most important ones are relative major and minor using the same tonic. That's what relative scales are, the different scales that use the same tonic. As you can see, there are not that many new concepts, but we're going deeper and deeper. And the deeper we're going, the more vital it is that you're practicing these skills. This is not just about understanding things and being able to notate and calculate them. You need to hear stuff. You need to be able to sing stuff. You need to be able to play stuff and recognize what you're playing and what's being played. This is about skills. And the deeper we're going, the more you need those skills in order to even be able to go to the next level. Next lesson is about blending major and minor even more in ways you haven't even thought of, and it's going to enrich your musical palette even more. Click here to watch it, and if you don't want to miss out on future content, subscribe. Now if you're binging these videos, I feel I need to remind you to stop that for a second and go make some music.